if you want to start really winning people back, 11.0 has got to be beers and heavy metal. Almost.
Well,
or has to have a little bit of that older fantasy, because with this, they're going way more into the sort of like the high fantasy of the Warcraft setting. Like, you know, in a way, right? And it's kind of interesting. It's like that really appeals to me. But evidently, a lot of the people who just kind of want to do PvP in the Barrens or something, doesn't seem like it maybe appeals to them as much.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like VHTN Gaming dropped us £20 super. Thank you.
Cheers.
And said, many players act as if they're no longer interested in an MMO, but want a game more like Destiny with a WoW skin. So traditional high fantasy isn't a boon, but a detriment, especially as the culture wars polarize them.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite big then, because, yeah, so much of this is seen as like a culture war issue rather than just kind of like looking at the game itself. Which, I mean, obviously that issue gets forced by a lot of real world things, of course. And yeah, I suppose we do end up this weird situation where it's like, well, what is WoW? Because yeah, in one way, they have detrained a lot of the people who like the sort of core WoW aesthetic that, you know, that used to be there. And at the same time as they've done that, they've turned it into more of a Zoomery Destiny-like game. In terms of how they've, like, you know, designed the loot loop and all of that stuff. But from their perspective, they've probably just tried to make dungeons that you'll play after the first month of the expansion, and this is the way that they did it. Then it turns out maybe they accidentally made Destiny within WoW. So, yeah, it's challenging. Now that kind of comes in with a member message that the Night Stalker, who's been with us for 3 months, dropped, saying some players have a cult-like religion, sort of religion-like devotion to games. If they abandon one, they convince themselves that the decision can't be wrong in retrospect. And that's like an interesting thing, because we can be very, you know, there's a phrase, strong opinions held loosely. And I think the most important part of that is the held loosely, because that's about like openness and mental agility. And like, that's why strong opinions held loosely is like often seen as a, you know, like a good enough position.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I would describe that specifically, because I think that's actually a fairly hard concept to understand, because it implies flakiness if you hold an opinion loosely. But I think as far as I understand it, it is a little bit more about, with all of the knowledge you have available, you have to kind of believe what it tells you, but keep your mind open to anything that disputes that. Yeah. And that's a thing where if you believe something, believe it with all of your heart. But as soon as something contradicts that belief, genuinely does, then you can kind of push away from that. So it is a kind of thing of a strong opinion. Some people think of it as like a valorous thing of, oh, you have that strong opinion, hold that opinion until you die upon this hill. But other people see it as like blockheadedness. I think it's the thing is try to harness the valorous part of be strong in your belief, but then if you turn out to be wrong, go, oh yeah, I was wrong. I can't hold that opinion anymore because it was fucking wrong. So that's what that means to me.
And I think that's why, you know, really Blizzard needs to add body option 5, 6, 7, and 8 to the point where the Drakthir is just pecs and a neck. Yeah. Nothing else. It's just massive pecs.
We need Kyriakos Grizzly Drakthir tomorrow.
Yeah, that's it. Unless we have a gotta look up Mr. Kyriakos Grizzly?
Kyriakos Grizzly, yeah.
Kyriakos Grizzly, yeah. Basically, we need him, but you know what?
The Bloat Lord. Yeah.
Basically, Blizzard, I'm going to give you some free consultation. You need your Drakthir.
We got him.
You're now safe. You need your Drakthir to look like Kyriakos Grizzly.
Yeah.
This is a Medium post called The 5 Important Life Lessons from the Bloat Lord Kyriakos Grizzly.
Yeah. Well, Grizzly is a very, very strong man.
He's a very strong man. But this is what we need. The Drakthir, I mean, like, I think you might need 2 Kyriakos Grizzlies put together. That's what the new body option needs to be to actually convince people's minds. Or we could just take what Orpheus said, who dropped us a super, thank you, and said, don't play WoW, play FGO instead.
Yeah, just
spend 80 grand on people would be great.
Yeah, don't play gacha games unless you have extensive resilience to not get lost to their wily ways.
Oh, that's it. You need to be fucking strong to resist that. I mean, yeah, to resist that urge, because some of those 5-star characters look pretty cool. Got some cool abilities. Yeah, it's tough shit.
Really got me recently. Got me recently just because there was a whole what was it? It was some heroic spirit of samurai that or a katana maker that inhabits Shiro's body and does this makes a sword that's so strong it cuts the concept of fate, and I was like, that's really cool.
That's the concept.
Yeah.
All right, so that's just the overall situation. I'm gonna keep tracking the numbers because I'm interested generally in where the game is going, how the community is actually responding to these things, because it is interesting. I guess what we've done for all these years, it has been tracking it. I have a feeling that for Blizzard, they could be a bit disappointed at some of the metrics they've got right now.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a matter of putting in the work and not having the dramas and slowly earning people back by things being cool. And I think there is one thing that could do this decently, and it's the one thing that maybe has the biggest question mark. That, and I say this in a way, I say this knowing that a lot of the people who aren't with the game just don't give a fuck about the lore. But they still want the cool Blizzard moments. It's like, you cannot give a fuck about the lore of StarCraft, but you can see a StarCraft cinematic and think it's pretty cool. You cannot give a fuck about a Warcraft cinematic, but you can see the BFA cinematic or the Warlords of Draenor one and think, that's cool. Warlords, that's metal as fuck. I want that. Why do you think Warlords of Draenor did so well with its marketing? It's because that hard as fuck, vibe, whatever, that is actually what a lot of people want from Warcraft. Perhaps even most.
Yep.
And that's going to be their problem. They don't have that. That's clearly not what they're really interested in making. So when it comes to the lore, are they going to have those super big cool moments? Or is it going to be more people on Twitter shipping Rathian with Anduin? Which is like, hey, fine. Do that. They're fun characters. They have fun dialogue. I get that. But, evidently we're coming to this sort of weird position where WoW's just got a very stratified audience. And I suppose that's really my point. The lore team needs to prove that a BFA in Shadowlands will never happen again. And it's real fucking hard to believe that.
Yeah, and the one thing I think is interesting about that is we will, because we're particularly critical people in terms of how we engage with the world and engage with things, whenever we look at things, we'll okay, well, here are parts where the experience of writing could be better, this could be handled better, this could be done better, etc., etc. But it doesn't even need to be good. And that's the one thing I think that makes this really super hyper difficult to be understood by developers as well as consumers. And basically just about everyone. And it doesn't need to be good, it needs to feel good. And that's why, but it's not kind of understanding that is where I think, the narrative stuff of World of Warcraft will have a really tough challenge in the future. Where they could make this expansion in terms of, hey, we've, this is, I don't mean this because this is particularly unfair, it's just an analogy because I can't think of what would work. But the idea of, right, we're going to take our narrative design team and our quest writers and stuff and our quest centers, we're going to take them to writing classes, but not basic writing classes, writing classes in the same way Rocky went up to wherever he went. Was it Alaska or was it somewhere further north in Rocky IV? And they just had the training camp. They had the training arc. And then they come back and they go, right, we know exactly how to do writing really fucking
they
well.
Need to get
We're
the fucking
sick as hell.
$5,000, $10,000 a day consultant who is top of their game at narrative design in whatever the field is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe they just need to get some of Ishikawa.
Yeah.
Maybe they just need to get her help. But in a way, they need something like that. They need narrative design help so that they can get someone to actually guide them in how to draw this plot line together and how to make those really big epic moments that even if someone doesn't care about the lore, it informs how they see the world and if they think the thing that they are playing is cool. Because that's the thing. It's you don't need to think that Deathwing is cool or the Arthas stuff is cool, or you don't need to care about the history of Draenor. If you see the trailer, then you're that's a cool trailer. The thing I'm playing is cool.
Yeah, that's what I think their problem's going to be. Because it's really, really hard to just go, well, I'll just make something that's actually cool. Because they try to make cool stuff. That's what they do. They're not going, we will intentionally make this as uncool as possible. They're going, we're going to do what makes it cool.
But tell me you're not explaining the jailer, dude. Please tell me.
No, but it's like, but it's like there's issues there, right? Where they were, written into a corner and wrote themselves into a corner and couldn't
be honest about it.
Couldn't,
That's how I'd put it. So much of this could be solved by just, put people in the team in front of a camera and actually have them be frank about why it's been a really challenging time.
Yeah, but like ultimately my point here is they could get really, like, I guess literally good and really skilled, but that doesn't matter if they make stuff that no one cares about. You can be good without being emotionally a good experience to people. And that's where they really, I think, will suffer for a long time. They have an entire training arc to do of how do we make things that people care about? Not how do we make things that are good, how do you make things that people care about? And that is such a multifaceted problem for them to solve. And they're honestly, the entire world's against them because the entire setup of World of Warcraft in terms of how the community engages with it is basically let's give this a chance earnestly.
And that's the thing. I think when me and Matt go into this, we have our like personal opinions or biases or whatever, but what we'll try to do is to be neutral, or to at least try to find the point of the point of going into something decently pure and communicate what we feel. So that's the thing. It's like I've been furious at World of Warcraft for quite a long time now.
Yep.
I still go in and it's like, well, dragon riding is really cool. Yeah. That I've been furious about the game in the past isn't going to impact how I feel dragon riding is, because I feel it's really fun. And it would be dishonest to say to the audience, oh, the dragon riding's shit, because WoW is shit, and you shouldn't like it. Like, number one, I mean, that would be, like, dishonest. It would definitely make, in some ways, more views, more dollar, because that's, like, what people want to hear. But it's quite tricky. So it's like, if you try to be professional and do your job, and I guess, like, the job is to show people the new stuff, communicate what the new stuff is, provide, like, honest, feedback and thoughts on it. Like, I've recorded a UI video, and it's definitely a mixed video. Even though there are good things coming with the UI. But yeah, it's one of those funky things.
Yeah, it's like, it's just, they have so much to win, and they've got a hard fight to win it. And it's really unfortunate because so much of it is like the general community sense of game bad. How do you get game from bad to game good? People need to play the game and come up with the opinion that it's good. But they're going to play the game with the opinion that it's bad. And you have to, and this is the case where it's like, this is where you look at, like, I guess FF14 in a way, where 1.0 was really, really bad in almost every conceivable way.
Indeed.
And then A Realm Reborn was like, well, we've done the work. But we haven't done the work silently, and then kind of you've woken up one day and realized they're good. They had the event of, this is fucking good now, we promise. And they basically put their lives on the line, not literally, but close enough to it. For that, everyone in that team and everyone in that company basically did. And that's the thing where Blizzard's strategy of grinding it out is going to be so much more difficult in the long run, and they're positioned to lose that. Whereas if they did go into the hyperbolic time chamber and come out and go, fuck it, we've done something amazing, you'll love it. That's not their style, and that's risky.
And they're also almost incapable of being as honest as the FF team is.
Yeah, because
it's almost, I think it's they're sort of taking responsibility of things for things, and like apologizing is like more of a thing, I suppose, in Japanese culture, according to what I have heard on documentaries about that game, where people like in Square Enix America were basically saying, no, stop apologizing all the time. Yeah. This doesn't work with American audiences. Whenever they apologize, they think you're weak and they hate you more.
That aged like milk.
I mean, that sounds... God, that sounds a bit grim. But like Blizzard, maybe they still think that's the case. And they're not going to be apologetic about something. Maybe they're not going to apologize something didn't work because they don't want to hurt the feelings of people in the team. When ultimately it's like, well, no... The people who greenlit it were the bosses. They take the responsibility. The team were just doing their job.
Yeah. And here's a problem, I think, with that specifically. Because you don't want to say to someone, oh, well, your work failed because it was bad. When it wasn't bad. Whenever it was maybe good. But this is where I think the difference between something can be good and people might not like it. And I think that's the problem they keep running into. This is good, but people don't like it. That's what I think a lot of the reaction to Drac Theater kind of is. Where it's like, okay, I will admit a lot of their animations are very, I hope it's alpha, but like whenever you're hovering around and it's kind of a little bit flat and stuff like that, a lot of that needs a lot of improvement. I don't know if that's engine limitations or alpha stuff or whatever else. There's definitely like a very much, this isn't fucking done feel, but in terms of like the class design, it's really, really interesting. And as you've seen the video, I think the healer is probably like, maybe basically the most interesting healer in the game. I think Disc is really interesting. I'm not particularly a fan. Mistweaver is kind of really sloppy interesting, but like I immediately went, whoa, this is fucking something. This would be fun to play with. But people might not like that. It's what's like brave for them to go, this is an advanced class. Hey, we've made a new class and it's advanced. Which means if you don't like World of Warcraft where you're sitting thinking about every button you press, you're probably not going to like the Evoker. Because it's a little bit, because it's advanced by design. If you want to play something where you've got like 2 healing buttons and just heal away, then you're not going to like that. No matter how good it is.
It ain't no holy priest.
Yeah, no matter how good it is, you're not going to like it. And that's a problem. They'll be going, fuck, why does everyone hate the fucking Drac Theater Evoker? And you have to sit down and go, it was good, but no one likes it. And that's a difficult thing to communicate to people, I think.
Yeah. From Lord of Cum. There he is. We found the Lord of Cum, everyone. Lore has been in the toilet for a very long time. Playing the past 16 years, there have been ups and downs, but it's been so bad that I understand the cynicism going around. That's it, exactly. I think with WoW, it would always bounce back, right? You had MOP, and at the end of MOP, you were a very satisfied player with the game content. You were unsatisfied with the wait, but at least the next thing looked really cool. And then WoD was a flash in the pan that didn't have great support, so it was a bit of a down tick. And then you go into Legion, and it's big hype happy. You go into BFA, oh my god, it was BFA. And then, I mean, I guess THD liked BFA, so good on him. Oh, the Zoomers. And then, you know, after BFA, oh no, we go to Shadowlands. That's it. It's 2 duds in a row. I mean, imagine, you know, Windows. It was always, you'd have a good Windows release and a bad Windows release and a good Windows release. Imagine if Windows had 2 or 3 bad releases in a row. Maybe people would have been pissed off enough to move to another platform. I mean, maybe they just stay in XP, who knows. Sarfe said, I've always had a thought in the back of my mind that Blizzard doesn't care as much about the lore as long as it's cool in the moment. No depth to me. You know, that's what's really weird. It's like with Arthas and all that stuff, when they were just telling a story, it really worked. You know? And I guess they were strongest when they were building out the small elements in the game world. And that kind of thing. That's like why the World of Warcraft captured people's imagination, happening after the backdrop of the really engaging narrative of Reign of Chaos and Frozen Throne. Then you have TBC that's weird with the lore. Then you've got Wrath, which does have a few quirks of the lore, but overall is just building out a place that is just goddamn incredible to be in. Like, I mean, Northrend's just awesome. And then Cataclysm is when we start getting the kind of, you know, some of the weirder, cheesy stuff going on with Kata. It kind of reminds me of sort of the level of, you know, because StarCraft 2 really upped the cheese compared to StarCraft 1, like in a bit of a way. And then they really start to nail it, completely nail it with MOP. And then they nail it with like the first bit of WoD. And then Legion, at least, like Legion was able to do Rule of Cool, but mostly keep its story straight. Yeah, and I think it's just these last 2 years, whatever Chaos FFXIV wrote. And then, to be very clear, the inability of the current narrative team to move it forward in a good direction. I completely refuse to believe that this is all Afrasabi or Afrasiabi, whatever you say his surname. I completely refuse to believe that this is all his fault. No way, that's just a scapegoat. There are so many ways that you could have tied up, you know, done the story of the jailer with 2 content patches better than what they did. Like, definitely, right? Like, there's no way that end cinematic should have been so lame. Like they have just messed up too much on their own steam. And I mean, certainly even like the N'Zoth stuff. It's like for so many of the players who are invested in the old God lore for such a long time, literally going back to the speculations of vanilla, to have that be paid off in one of the lamest finales the game had ever had, that was so disrespectful to the players. So it's like, yeah, no shit, people got really, you know, salty about it. Like, rightly so. They felt their investment, emotional investment, was betrayed. So of course we're going to have an emotional response. FFXIV said, you might not care about the lore, but the lore sets the vibe of the expansion. And that is just a brilliant super. That is so true.
That's why Shadowlands feels so ultimately lifeless, is because you all of the context for existing in that world was just like, this doesn't logically hold up. Because it does within its own little pocket dimension of like logic. But then, because I even see people talk about it on Twitter still all the time, where you're like, oh yeah, there are a load of ghosts walking around Azeroth. Cool. How does that fit into the grand scheme? And that was covered in side quests. But it wasn't really fixed in your head. It was like, you could tell they didn't really go, okay, well, we've got this all super nailed. So the context was like, yeah, that's why Shadowlands, I have this feeling. BFA felt like World of Warcraft. It was a weird version of World of Warcraft, but it was World of Warcraft. It was logically consistent. It was the world. It was Azeroth. Obviously, there were downsets, but Shadowlands is like, this feels like, it feels like a fanfic expansion.
Oh, Shadowlands is a fanfic.
In basically every way, and that's what was the problem. We're like, this, you know what it was? It reminded me, and this is going to sound fucking bonkers, but it sounds a lot, or it felt a lot to me like I felt playing Super Mario 64 Star Road, which is a ROM hack. And it's like, this is still Super Mario 64, but it's not.
Yeah.
It uses a lot of the same textures, but it's just not. It's just not. Yeah. And you kind of feel that in a way that's weird. Maybe because you have the knowledge it's not in your head, and that starts to seep into your feeling. But
I think about even something like how important, like, even the aspect of there just being ghosts in Azeroth. What does that mean? Yeah, it's covered in a side quest. FF14 wouldn't leave that to a side quest because they understand that like the rules of the world are really fucking important. Yeah, those are a part of MSQ. There's another one on this topic, but before we get to that, Orpheus dropped us $7 to say, FGO exploits my love of the visual novel. It actually has decent stories, which is a shame because inside it's an awful casino. That's the thing about like all the gachas from what I understand. Like, is it Arcanites is the other one? Like they actually have like pretty engaging stories and stuff. Yeah. It's just the monetization is what it is.
Yeah, I didn't get very far into playing Punishing Grey Raven because I stopped playing video games all the time for basically straight after I started playing. But it was like, I was immediately hooked on like the world building, and I was like, and then I was able to push through all of the, hey, here's gacha itemization stuff. Didn't spend any money on it, but I was like, this is like strong enough to keep me there. And that's where it wins. We're like, oh, I can immediately sense a sense of world from you.
Yeah.
And that's how it works that way.